Welcome to Cruise News, your daily update on everything happening at sea. Visit cruisenews.io to see today's stories and sign up for email alerts. So, picture this scenario for a second. You have your vacation time approved. You have the budget ready to go. You log on to book a highly anticipated cruise, and the cruise line essentially tells you, well, no.
Oh, wow. Just a flat-out no.
Right, and not because the ship is sold out, but because you literally aren't on the list. You just haven't been invited.
Which sounds completely counterintuitive to how the travel industry usually works.
Exactly. I mean, we're so used to open booking, but based on the reporting we are looking at today, this is becoming a very real thing. We are essentially witnessing the death of the floating hotel era.
Yeah, that old one-size-fits-all model.
Right. For decades, the industry standard was all about mass appeal, building a ship that tried to be everything to everyone at the exact same time. It had to appease the toddlers, the grandparents, the honeymooners, and the solo backpackers all within the same hull.
Which is an incredibly difficult balancing act to pull off successfully. I mean, it's almost impossible.
It really is. And our lens for today's coverage is looking at exactly how cruise lines are reshaping both the onboard and the destination experience. Because it's really about who certain sailings are for and how the physical spaces are evolving to serve vastly different traveler needs.
Absolutely. Because what the current reporting reveals is this profound structural pivot in the industry. Success just isn't defined by the sheer size of a vessel anymore.
Or how many roller coasters they can bolt to the top deck.
Exactly. It is now defined by how perfectly a cruise line can curate the environment for a highly specific traveler mindset. It's a transition from generic hospitality to precision engineering.
And we are going to look at exactly how that precision engineering is playing out across the entire spectrum. First, we're going to look at Carnival restricting access to create this mysterious invite-only adults ecosystem.
Which is fascinating.
It is. And then we'll pivot to how they are facing the exact opposite challenge in the Bahamas, engineering a massive port to actually let more people in by accommodating invisible disabilities. And finally, we will look at Holland America completely manipulating the passage of time on a luxury world cruise.
It really highlights how physical infrastructure and onboard programming, well, they have to evolve in tandem. I mean, you cannot change who the cruise is for without fundamentally changing how the space operates.
So let's dive straight into Carnival Cruise Line and this massive expansion of their SEA program for 2026.
That's SEA, right?
Yes, SEA. It stands for Sailings Exclusively for Adults, and they are heavily committing to this. I mean, we are looking at 22 planned voyages across a significant portion of their fleet.
That's a huge chunk of inventory.
It really is. The Carnival Glory, the Conquest, the Dream, and the Firenze are all dedicating itineraries to this concept. And the Carnival Paradise is running these exclusive sailings through April 2026 as well. And the defining feature is obviously a strict 21 and older rule, but, it goes so much deeper than simply checking IDs at the terminal.
Oh, for sure. Because removing children from the demographic equation, it creates a sort of vacuum on board. The whole family-focused energy is gone.
Right, so they have to replace it with something.
Exactly. The cruise line has to actively replace it with programming that appeals to the adult demographic they are targeting. And in this case, that means heavily leaning into a casino-driven atmosphere.
Yeah, Carnival's official messaging emphasizes a much more relaxed vibe. They are taking those standard family events off the schedule and replacing them with themed adult parties, high-stakes bingo, and extended casino hours.
Which totally shifts the energy of the ship.
It does. And they also explicitly note that there are adjustments to the dining and the entertainment, but they actually refuse to publish a standardized list of what those changes are.
So they're keeping it a secret.
They are keeping the operational details entirely under wraps. And that leads to the most fascinating and frankly baffling part of this whole strategy, the booking flow.
Right, how you actually get on this ship.
Yeah, because you cannot just go to Carnival's website and buy a ticket for an SEA voyage. Those sailings are literally invisible to the general public. You need a direct invitation from Carnival or a dedicated sign-up link just to request an offer to pay them.
That is wild.
They won't even publicly disclose the exact criteria for who gets these invites or what the baseline pricing is. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Because from a business standpoint, intentionally hiding your product from paying customers seems like financial self-sabotage. It's almost like a VIP room at a Vegas casino, except the entire ship is the VIP room. I mean, does keeping the exact criteria a secret actually drive more demand by creating an aura of mystery?
Well, what's fascinating here is the underlying economic architecture.
Yeah.
Yes, manufacturing mystery absolutely drives the psychological allure. I mean, we all want what we're told we can't have.
Right, human nature.
Exactly. But from a structural perspective, this is a highly calculated revenue strategy. Carnival is surgically carving out a premium ecosystem for their most loyal, highest-spending demographic.
So it's not just about filling beds.
Not at all. If you look at the baseline economics of a mass-market cruise, filling cabins with families drives volume. But a family of 4 sharing a cabin often means 2 adults buying drinks and 2 children sailing at a heavily discounted rate.
Who aren't generating high-margin onboard revenue. I mean, the kids aren't sitting down at the blackjack table or buying expensive shore excursions.
Precisely. A casino-driven demographic operates on a completely different financial trajectory. High-yield casino guests generate exponentially more onboard revenue per capita.
Ah, that makes sense.
So by stripping away the family volume and filling an entire 3,000-passenger ship exclusively with this specific demographic, Carnival maximizes the onboard spend in a highly tailored setting.
And imagine the staffing needs shift, too.
Very much so.
Yeah.
They don't have to staff the youth clubs to the same degree, which frees up operational resources. Plus, the exclusivity ensures that demand outstrips supply, which means they don't have to slash cabin prices at the last minute just to sail full.
That makes the math make a lot more sense. It isn't just about selling a cabin. It is about who is sleeping in that cabin and what their wallet looks like when they wake up.
Exactly.
And they are deploying this strategy globally. It isn't just restricted to the Caribbean market. I mean, they have departures slated from Singapore. Out on the West Coast, the Carnival Firenze is taking on 4 of these SEA voyages from Long Beach, running itineraries down the Mexican Riviera.
And those are between October 12th and November 20th of 2026, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But the absolute wildest logistical maneuver in this entire 2026 SEA lineup involves the Carnival Glory out in Europe.
Oh, the European deployment is a textbook case of turning a liability into a premium asset.
It really is. So the Carnival Glory was scheduled for a 15-night adults-only sailing out of Barcelona that departed on March 25th, 2026. But the crazy thing is, the ship was never originally supposed to be sailing passengers in Europe at that time.
Right, it was supposed to be empty.
Yeah, it was scheduled for a routine dry dock. You know, that period where a vessel goes completely out of service for major maintenance. But for whatever reason, that dry dock was canceled.
Leaving them with a massive problem.
Exactly. Suddenly, Carnival's fleet managers are staring at an empty ship sitting in Europe, generating 0 revenue. And instead of scrambling to sell heavily discounted family fares at the last minute, they pivoted. They turned it into this massive 15-night, invite-only SEA voyage.
This is what industry analysts refer to as opportunistic deployment. They recognize that trying to market a 15-night European cruise to families on short notice, especially during the school year, is nearly impossible.
Yeah, no family is taking 2 weeks off in March.
Right. But marketing a deep immersion, child-free European experience to high-roller empty nesters, that is a very easy sell to the right list of loyalists.
And when you look at the itinerary, you can really see why it works for that specific demographic. It sails round trip from Barcelona and calls on Spain, Italy, Morocco, and the Canary Islands. The stops are heavily geared toward deep, exhaustive exploration.
Real cultural immersion.
Yeah, they hit Civitavecchia, which requires a long train or bus ride to access Rome. They hit Livorno for access to Tuscany, then down to Malaga in Spain, Tangier in Morocco, and finally Las Palmas and Santa Cruz out in the Canary Islands.
And the absence of children fundamentally alters the shore excursion dynamics here. When you are catering to a family demographic, well, shore excursions lean toward shorter, highly active experiences.
Like water parks or brief beach breaks.
Exactly, things that accommodate short attention spans. But on a 15-night adult sailing, the demographic supports 10-hour intensive cultural tours through Roman ruins or Tuscan vineyards without worrying about someone having a meltdown on the bus ride back to the port.
But the whiplash of their fleet management is just incredible to me, because once that 15-day premium Barcelona sailing wraps up, the glory doesn't linger in Europe. On April 9th, it immediately begins a 13-night transatlantic repositioning cruise back to North America.
That's a fast turnaround.
Yeah. It hits Alicante, Malaga, Gibraltar, and Carnival's new Celebration Key in the Bahamas before dropping anchor at its new home in Port Canaveral. And then, starting April 24th, 2026, it goes right back to its regular grind.
The short runs.
Yep, churning out 3- and 4-night Bahamas runs year-round. It goes from a deeply curated, elite cultural immersion straight into the high-volume weekend party market.
It perfectly illustrates how flexible these physical assets have to be. But bringing up Celebration Key introduces a really fascinating contrast in how the industry handles space.
Oh, so.
Well, Carnival's SEA program is entirely about curating an environment by keeping certain people out. Their strategy at Celebration Key is the exact opposite. It is about engineering a massive physical destination to let vastly more people in.
That is a great point. So let's talk about Celebration Key, which is Carnival's massive new destination in Grand Bahama. It opened in July of 2025, and it has officially received sensory inclusion certification from Culture City.
Which is a huge milestone.
It is the very first cruise destination to earn this designation. Because for a long time, the industry viewed accessibility purely through a physical lens, building wider elevator doors, flattening thresholds for wheelchairs, adding ramps.
For traditional ADA compliance stuff.
Right. But this initiative pushes accessibility into the neurological space. They are designing for travelers with invisible disabilities, which includes things like autism, PTSD, dementia, and severe sensory processing disorders.
Which requires a fundamental rethinking of what a vacation actually feels like to the human nervous system.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that.
Well, a typical cruise port is an environment of extreme sensory bombardment. You have thousands of people disembarking simultaneously. You have the intense heat and the blinding glare of the Caribbean sun.
The loud steel drum bands playing on the pier.
Exactly. Constant public address announcements, the smell of food and diesel fuel, and just the sheer claustrophobia of massive crowds. For someone with typical sensory processing, that is just the chaotic energy of a vacation.
Right, it's just a busy port day.
But for someone with a sensory sensitivity, it is a profoundly overwhelming and paralyzing ordeal.
And the scale of Celebration Key really amplifies all of that. We aren't talking about a quiet, private beach here. This destination is expected to see 2 million guests in 2026.
2 million? That's massive.
Yeah, there are 20 different ships scheduled to call there from 10 different U.S. home ports. It features massive lagoon pools, a mile-long beach, local food trucks. It is a sprawling, high-energy complex. And to manage that kind of volume while maintaining sensory inclusion, Carnival had to put more than 400 of their guest-facing staff through specialized Culture City training.
That's a huge logistical commitment.
It is. They are taught how to recognize the behavioral signs of a guest struggling with sensory overload, and more importantly, how to step in with empathy and actionable assistance.
And that proactive approach is the cornerstone of the Culture City model. True inclusion means anticipating the friction points before the guest even encounters them.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The physical tools they are deploying to manage that friction. They offer complimentary sensory bags right on site.
Oh, what's in them?
While inside, guests find noise-reducing headphones to mute the overwhelming crowd noise, fidget tools for tactile grounding, and light-filtering glasses to soften the intense Bahamian sun or any flashing lights.
Those are great practical aids.
But the communication tools are what truly shift the paradigm. They have a feelings thermometer for nonverbal guests. So if a child or an adult cannot articulate their distress, they can simply point to a color-coded emotion to communicate their internal state to the staff.
That's incredibly smart.
And then there is the VIP lanyard, which features a small headphone and light bulb logo.
That lanyard is an elegant piece of operational design.
Let me push back on that for a second, though. I mean, is a lanyard really going to change the trajectory of someone's day? It seems like a very small piece of plastic to solve a very large neurological problem.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to look at the friction it removes. Culture City data shows that roughly 1 in 4 people is affected by a sensory need or an invisible disability.
1 in 4.
Yeah. So apply that ratio to the 2 million people visiting Celebration Key. And you are talking about 500,000 guests navigating that space with hidden challenges.
Wow, okay.
Imagine you are a parent dealing with a child having a severe sensory meltdown in the middle of a crowded plaza. Historically, you would have to frantically explain to a confused security guard or a food vendor what is happening, often facing judgment or misunderstanding.
Which just adds to the stress.
Exactly. The lanyard acts as a silent communication broadcast. The moment one of those 400 trained staff members sees that logo, they instantly know the context. No one has to explain anything. The staff member knows to offer a quiet space, to exercise extra patience, or to retrieve a sensory bag. It removes the burden of explanation from the family.
That reframes it completely. It's almost like providing noise-canceling headphones to a worker on a loud factory floor. It doesn't magically make the factory quiet, but it gives the worker the vital tool they need to survive the environment without breaking down.
That's a perfect analogy.
And Carnival is actively putting a spotlight on this infrastructure. On April 3rd, to align with World Autism Acceptance Month, they are hosting a sensory room pop-up directly at Celebration Key.
Oh, that's a great initiative.
Yeah, it's designed to be an entirely controlled, calm space amidst the chaos of those 2 million expected visitors. Guests can go in, regulate their nervous system, and then return to their vacation when they are ready.
It proves that creating a high-energy mass-market vacation doesn't inherently have to exclude neurodivergent travelers. You can engineer empathy directly into the concrete and operations of the port.
Which brings us to our final stop today. We're moving from the massive physical scale of a Bahamian megaport to the intimate temporal scale of a luxury world cruise.
Completely different vibe.
Completely. We are looking at Holland America line, specifically the Volendam, and how they are curating the guest mindset over the course of a 133-night grand world voyage.
Extended voyages present a unique operational challenge because, well, how do you manage the passage of time? When you have guests captive on a vessel for over 4 months, the pacing of the entertainment has to fundamentally shift.
Right, you can't just do trivia every day. The Volendam left Fort Lauderdale way back on January 4th, 2026. It sailed down through the Pitcairn Islands in February and eventually crossed over to Asia. And during that Asia segment, spanning March 24th through 30th, Holland America instituted a dedicated tea week.
An entire week dedicated to tea.
Yeah. They brought aboard master tea blender Steve Schwartz, who is the founder of Art of Tea, as part of their culinary ambassador program. And he didn't just stand on a stage and give a lecture. He worked with the culinary team to develop a custom tea blend exclusively for this specific voyage.
It represents a shift from passive entertainment to active deep dive enrichment. You cannot fill 133 days with belly flop contests. The demographic investing in a world cruise demands intellectual and cultural engagement that matches the financial investment of the ticket.
So what does this all mean in practice? I have to be honest, an entire week dedicated to tea sounds like it runs the risk of being incredibly dry. I mean, are passengers actually engaging with this, or are they just showing up for the free samples?
This raises an important question about the environment required to foster this kind of programming. You have to look at the structure of what Schwartz delivered. They hosted an exclusive high tea in the main dining room, but they also conducted a side-by-side tea tasting experience.
Oh, interesting.
He was actively instructing guests on how to deconstruct the beverage. Evaluating the aroma, analyzing the flavor profile, understanding the structural tannins. It concluded with a Rituals of Tea seminar that explored the deep cultural history of how these practices evolved in Asia.
And they pushed the programming off the ship as well. While docked in Singapore, guests participated in a journey through tea shore excursion. In Vietnam, they offered a lotus tea culture and vegan food experience.
That's serious immersion.
They are essentially training the guests to treat tea with the exact same reverence and analytical rigor that a master sommelier applies to a vintage wine. It isn't just about drinking, it's about forcing the guests to slow down and taste with absolute undivided intention.
Right.
But the Volendam is an older, smaller vessel carrying roughly 1,400 guests. It lacks the massive, high-tech amenities of modern megaships. Does the physical limitation of the ship actually make this kind of slow-paced programming work?
In today's crowded luxury market, that limitation is their primary competitive advantage. The Volendam cannot rely on virtual reality dining rooms or Broadway-scale theatrical productions. Instead, it competes by fostering an intimate, highly supportive floating community.
That makes sense.
Crucially, the reporting notes that guests specifically cited the relative lack of digital distractions on board as the catalyst for this environment. The lack of constant high-speed Wi-Fi pinging isn't a failure of technology. It is the necessary condition for actual face-to-face camaraderie.
It forces you to look up from the screen and actually occupy the physical world.
Exactly the point. The reporting highlighted passengers noting that moments like sailing past the massive limestone karsts of Halong Bay at sunrise were profoundly memorable, specifically because the entire deck was fully present.
Nobody was staring at their phone.
They weren't filming it for social media, they were experiencing it. When you strip away the digital noise, a slow, mindful week of deconstructing tea aromas becomes deeply resonant because the guests actually have the mental bandwidth to absorb it.
It is a beautiful illustration of how time and attention can be curated just as meticulously as a physical space. And when you look back across all three of these stories, the through line of today's coverage is undeniable.
The era of the generic cruise is dead.
It really is. Whether a cruise line is mathematically removing children to create a high-yield, invite-only casino haven,
Yeah.
or they are engineering silent lanyards and sensory bags to help neurodivergent guests navigate a bustling Bahamian beach, or they are leveraging the digital isolation of an older ship to foster mindful tea rituals in Asia, they are succeeding by rigorously designing ecosystems for highly specific human mindsets.
It is hyper-personalization applied to heavy industry.
Absolutely. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to consider as we wrap up.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, we are seeing cruise lines successfully track guest needs via silent VIP lanyards, and we are seeing them curate entire ecosystems via secret, data-driven invitations. If they already possess that level of granular profiling, how long until the actual physical infrastructure of the ship becomes dynamic?
That's a wild thought.
Are we approaching a future where artificial intelligence on board dynamically alters the ambient lighting, the music volume, or even the digital art in a public hallway in real time, simply because it detects that your specific profile just walked through the door?
It's entirely possible.
If the environment can adapt to the individual like that, the concept of a shared standard vacation might disappear entirely. Thanks for listening to Cruise News. Visit cruisenews.io to catch up on the latest updates and sign up for free email alerts.